In the city of Luo, more specifically along the pedestrian street area, the calendar showed March 2nd, 2030, and the streets were absolutely packed with energy and life, while advertising billboards covered every surface in a chaotic and noisy urban environment. Within the office space belonging to Yangfan Management Company, the air felt thick with tension as the gang leader positioned himself coldly while lighting up a cigarette, questioning the young man seated in front of him about whether he genuinely comprehended what it actually meant to borrow such an enormous amount as $5 million. This particular man went by the name Zheng Yang, who served as the leader of the Ocean Gang and functioned as the city's underground banker, operating in the shadows. And he delivered his explanation in a razor-sharp tone that his interest rates were incredibly low compared to others. The young man, whose name was Chen, sat with obvious nervousness showing, with sweat streaming down his face continuously, completely surrounded by massive and muscular gang members, responding in a voice that trembled and shook that he accepted whatever interest rate the leader chose to demand from him. Zhang Yang took advantage of the vulnerable situation, forcing his brutal conditions onto Chen, with an interest rate climbing all the way up to 40%. He would provide him with $5 million that needed to be repaid as $7 million within a 6-month period, while demanding collateral that equaled the total value. Chen rushed quickly to present the official deed to his commercial property, requesting that the leader take a careful look at the document. Zhang Yang studied the papers with a look full of malicious intent, diminishing the property's actual value by bringing up the building's old age and the stagnant market conditions, calculating its price at merely $3 or $4 million, while thinking to himself that easy prey had just walked straight into the slaughterhouse. With a tone full of finality and decision, he refused to provide the $5 million using only the house as collateral, making threats to cancel the entire deal completely. At this point, Chen pretended to show extreme panic and fear, desperately begging for assistance and lowering his request down to $4 million, claiming that he had met a fortune teller who gave him assurance that his gambling luck was absolutely unbelievable and that he would recover all of his losses. Zhang Yang leaned back and relaxed in his seat, coming to the realization that he was dealing with a reckless gambler who couldn't control himself. So he made an offer of only $3.5 million as his final and ultimate offer, feeling confident that the young man would accept it. Sure enough, Chen displayed an exaggerated and almost hysterical level of joy and agreed without delay, expressing gratitude to the leader and making promises to repay everything soon. The leader seized this moment of impulsiveness to tighten the trap even further, demanding repayment of $4.9 million within just a 3-month time frame, threatening that otherwise he would take possession of the house. And he ordered Chen to write a debt IOU so the money could be transferred within 3 days' time. Chen agreed without showing any hesitation whatsoever, but he established one specific condition before putting his signature on the document. 10 minutes passed, and Chen walked out through the office door, accompanied by a security guard, saying goodbye to the leader with a smile plastered across his face, as if the deal had worked out in his favor. The moment a notification arrived on his mobile phone indicating that the deposit of 3,500,000 yuan had entered his account, his facial features transformed completely, and that innocent smile shifted into a demonic and mocking sneer, calling the leader an absolute fool. He reasoned that who would possibly care about repaying loans when the end of the world was approaching in just 1 month's time. Chen brought back memories from his past lifetime when a horrifying natural disaster had struck the entire planet, creating radical and extreme changes in the ecosystem. He recalled how the intense solar radiation caused temperatures across the globe to climb to 50 degrees Celsius, and how all of humanity entered a scorching hell that continued for 30 full days, completely destroying civilization as everyone knew it. Meanwhile, back inside the office space, Zhang Yang was laughing in a mocking manner at the stupidity of the young man who had accepted the interest increase just to obtain money quickly, stating firmly that gamblers did not deserve to own homes or property. His assistant made an attempt to warn him, bringing up the fact that the house held more value than $4 million and that the young man accepting $3.5 million might actually be some kind of trap or scheme. However, Zhang Yang brushed aside his concerns with ease, providing an explanation that he had witnessed many gambling addicts sell their own families just to continue playing, and that he had no intention of stopping at just taking the house when the due date finally arrived. He planned to sell the young man's organs as well. Out on the street, Chen was walking along while staring at his phone, expressing amazement at the existence of kind and generous people who gave him money just for agreeing to waive an interest increase, wondering in a sarcastic tone if the leader genuinely believed he could scam him successfully. A cunning and clever smile emerged on his face as he told himself internally that he was a man who had borrowed money from every single loan shark operating in Luo City, all within a single day. So how could he possibly fear any interest rates? He gazed at his phone with complete confidence, feeling certain that once he held the money firmly in his hand, nobody should dream about getting it back from from him. His memory transported him back to scenes of absolute destruction, where the earth completely dried up, plants withered away and died, creatures underwent transformations into monsters, the system collapsed entirely, and people murdered each other over tiny scraps of resources. He understood fully and completely that whoever managed to control supplies possessed absolute wealth and power, and he had made the firm determination to become the king of this apocalyptic end times. He remembered clearly how billionaires and celebrities transformed into beggars, pleading desperately for a single drop of water or a small piece of sausage, otherwise facing a miserable death alone in the streets. Chen stood proud and tall amidst all the city lights surrounding him, coming to the realization that his rebirth had granted him sufficient time before the disaster would strike, which provided enough time to arrange his plans with precise detail. All of a sudden, a noise broke through and interrupted his train of thought, causing him to turn around and observe two girls having a conversation about a luxury brand of ice cream, which grabbed his attention right in the middle of his planning for the dark future ahead. Chen remembered with bitter feelings his past lifetime, where he did not even dare to purchase a piece of luxury ice cream for himself, while he bought it over and over again for that woman whose name was Liu Wangqing. Feeding her such a luxury type of ice cream, from his perspective now, represented a greater waste than feeding it to a dog. The more he allowed himself to think about it, the more his feelings of pain and intense anger continued to grow. So he made the decision to treat himself today and compensate for everything he had missed out on. Chen walked closer to the display counter and loudly placed an order for 10 pieces of every single type available in the entire store, sparking immediate astonishment from the girl standing positioned behind him. Whispers started rising throughout the area about his ability to afford such a huge and massive order, despite their admiration for his handsome appearance, as he barked out his orders with authority. The employee stared at him with shock and suspicion clearly visible, questioning whether he was being serious, especially since his appearance and clothing did not suggest any wealth, reminding him that this particular store sold the Ice Cream Assassin luxury brands, not just ordinary everyday ice cream. She provided an explanation in a warning tone that ordering 10 pieces of each individual item would cost him more than 20,000 yuan, just to confirm and verify his resolve and determination. At that precise moment, a red-haired woman stepped in and intervened in a sarcastic manner, criticizing his simple and plain clothes, and announced in a defiant way that she would kneel down to him and bow immediately if he actually possessed the price of what he had ordered. Chen turned in her direction with a sharp look and a confident smile spreading across his face, asking her if she really and truly meant what she had just said. The woman became flustered and uncomfortable, but made an attempt to maintain her arrogance and pride, refusing the idea of bowing down to him and doubting his status allowed him to act with such force and confidence. However, Chen responded with a terrifying coldness in his voice, informing her that he had given her a way out and an escape, but she had insisted on choosing the abyss instead, and now absolutely nobody would stop her from fulfilling her bet and promise. Chen pulled out his phone and displayed his bank account balance, which exceeded 20 million yuan, directly in front of the terrified employee, requesting that she wrap up everything immediately, which prompted her to run as fast as possible to summon the manager to the front. The manager, whose name was Fei, arrived in a hurry and with the utmost respect and politeness, only for Chen to order him to calculate the exact price of every single piece of ice cream throughout the entire store, announcing his desire to purchase the complete stock to close the shop early for the day. The manager started calculating the numbers, unable to believe his incredible luck, which had suddenly turned into a fortune, as these expensive products very rarely sold in such enormous quantities. The manager informed Chen that the display items held a worth of 70,000, and when combined with the inventory storage, the total value reached 1 million yuan exactly. Chen did not find the amount to be large or concerning. Rather, he viewed it as a golden opportunity to stockpile luxury food items to hide away in his home and enjoy when the disaster eventually struck the world. He transferred $300,000 as a down payment and provided the manager with his address to send all the goods later on, which the manager received with immense gratitude and thankfulness. Chen then turned his attention to the girls throughout the store, inviting them to select whatever ice cream they liked and wanted on his personal tab. Shouts of joy and praise for Chen Xiao's incredible generosity and handsome appearance rose up from all the girls gathered there. However, he directed his gaze sharply and directly toward the arrogant woman, excluding her specifically from his generous offer, and reminding her clearly that he was still waiting patiently for her to fulfill her bet of kneeling down before him. She couldn't handle the embarrassment and just broke down, dropping to her knees with tears streaming, while Chen stood above her, totally unfazed. He looked at her, not even trying to hide how unimpressed he was. He wondered why she acted all tough when she clearly couldn't handle what came with it. As the sun started going down, Chen chilled on a park bench with his fancy ice cream. He took a bite and could tell right away, yeah, this stuff was top tier. Out of nowhere, he tapped into his power and ripped open a gap right in the middle of the void. A black square popped up in front of him, his own storage space that could keep anything frozen in time, so he'd always have ice cream ready to go whenever he wanted. He chucked the shopping bag into the emptiness, feeling pretty hyped that he didn't have to stress about celebs or models anymore. Just knowing what he could do now was enough to put him in a good mood. He stared at his hand, kind of amazed. He always thought superpowers only showed up when something bad happened, so having his powers back after getting a second shot at life was the last thing he expected. He figured out pretty quick that this power was going to be his ultimate move from here on out. Chen started thinking about what he needed to do next. He had to build a safe spot, set up some cold storage, and start collecting weapons and stuff for power. It hit him that there was a ton on his plate. He was deep in his own head when his phone suddenly lit up. The name Little Fairy popped up on the screen, and that seriously caught him off guard. Chen Xiao glanced at his phone and instantly got annoyed when he saw who was calling. It was Lu Wan King, the girl he seriously thought brought nothing but bad luck whenever she was around. His mind flashed back to the time she showed up right after his parents passed. Back then, he honestly believed she was the one who'd pull him out of all that darkness, like some kind of hero. The real story was wild. She actually wanted his parents' small inheritance for herself, pushing him to drop cash on a fancy apartment downtown and cover a big dowry just to marry her. She kept draining his money, barely giving him a break. She even straight up told him to sell his family's old house, using the excuse that it was falling apart. Chen still couldn't shake off how much it stung when she tried to push him out of his family's legacy just because she wanted more stuff for herself. Things got even worse back then. During the disaster in his last life, she straight up turned on him and handed him over to one of the bosses like he was nothing. He gave up everything just to keep her safe. But in the end, she ditched him for someone she thought was stronger, treating him like he was nothing. He was gone, his body torn apart, while she stared down at him, straight up disgusted. The thought hit her. What if she had to eat him? No hesitation, no mercy. Chen snapped back to the real world, eyes cold and serious, ready to finally deal with everything she dragged back into his life. Since she showed up again, he knew it was time to handle business. He picked up his phone, hearing her voice come through, all chill and playful. She was clearly somewhere fancy, probably a high-end hotel, and he couldn't help but wonder what was up. She told everyone, sounding really down, that she'd been hanging out with her friends when her favorite gold necklace went missing. Losing it honestly just wrecked her mood. Chen had this sly grin on his face, acting like he actually cared. He pretended to be all supportive, saying he'd get her a new necklace. Then, out of nowhere, he dropped the wild idea of buying her 10 necklaces so she could just pick whatever she wanted. Lu didn't expect him to be so generous out of nowhere, so he just made up a story for her, saying he got rich off crypto and wanted to treat her. She had a feeling it could be a scam, but he kept hyping up this huge plan he had coming up, saying he was about to cash in big. He wanted her to help him out by signing as a witness for a loan he was about to take, promising her 5% of the cash as a thank you. An older guy walked out of the bathroom, clearly annoyed that her call was taking forever. She told him to hang on for a sec, her voice playful, but her mind was already racing, trying to figure things out. She kept her cool, thinking it through. All night with this old dude barely paid off, but just signing a contract with Chen would lock in 50 grand. Plus, she figured Chen was too scared to mess with her, so she wasn't worried about him trying anything. Once the call dropped, Chen's real side showed up. He looked straight up dangerous, barely able to sit still while waiting to get back at her. The story jumped to a new spot. Chen was posted up outside an apartment building with an engineer next to him. He wanted the whole place upgraded hard-like, no weak spots at all, and told the guy he had just 1 month to make it happen. He started rattling off some wild requests, stuff like bulletproof glass everywhere, walls built with heavy-duty concrete like it's a bunker, solar panels covering the whole roof, his own generators, and an air system straight out of the army. He set up a self-sustaining ecosystem and put in blast-proof doors with both fingerprint and manual locks. The engineer started stressing out, realizing just how intense these requests were. He knew exactly what he wanted, a combat shelter where you could actually live, not just hide out. The engineer figured Chen was probably one of those doomsday guys or just way too into sci-fi movies. Chen cut him off fast, throwing out his title, Master of Defense, right when he started second-guessing the budget. It hit his pride hard, like Chen was daring him to step up and own it. The engineer saw him as some rich guy who didn't really get how things worked, but honestly, the dude looked like a walking jackpot. Chen just dropped 1 million yuan on the spot as a down payment, basically telling the engineer he could figure out the rest of the price after everything was finished. The engineer was practically buzzing, thinking he'd just landed the jackpot that could set him up for life. Chen made it clear he only wanted top-notch materials, and once that was settled, the two guys shook hands to lock in the deal. Right then, everything got real. Both sides had their own game plan. The engineer was just trying to cash out on this rich dude, hoping to grab all he could. Meanwhile, Chen was already set on ghosting the last payment, thinking if the world ended before the deadline, no one would come looking for him anyway. Once Chen Xiao got his sword covered, the fortress was pretty much untouchable. He started planning what to do next, thinking about how to stock up on medicine, food, and all the basic stuff. For him, setting up these supplies felt like the easy win. What really kept running through his head was how the scariest part of the apocalypse wasn't the chaos or destruction. It was how people changed when there were no rules left. Sure, he could just walk into a store and pick up something to swing, but trying to find a gun that actually worked? That was next level tough. He picked up his phone and started digging through hidden group chats and trusted contacts, making sure to keep things safe while he searched. He hit up the seller to figure out how to buy, and the guy got back to him saying they'd meet at 8 p.m. He said he'd drop the address later and made it clear, don't be late. Chen pulled up to the spot that night, but he honestly didn't expect the seller to pick a packed neighborhood for the meetup. Out of nowhere, the silence got wrecked when a girl came sprinting, totally freaking out. Behind her, a bunch of guys were yelling all kinds of nasty stuff, telling her to stop as they chased her down. The guys trapped her at the end of the block, calling her out for turning on them in their own spot and making it clear she was in serious danger. She ducked behind Chen Xiao, shaking and hoping he'd step in to help her out. Chen spotted the girl's face and instantly knew who she was. It was Li Yu. He couldn't help but wonder why someone like her would show up here of all places. The guys started getting in her face and she started freaking out. Chen just stood there, totally stunned by what was happening. He stared at her for a second, trying to make sure it was really her. Back in middle school, Li Yu was that top student everyone knew. All the guys noticed her, she just had this vibe, always looking confident and kind of untouchable. Chen snapped back to real life when he saw one of the guys yanking her hair hard, trying to get cash out of her. Some random guy jumped in, grinning in this messed up way, and told his boss that if she was broke, she should pay up with her body instead. Chen couldn't just watch anymore. He shot them a cold stare and stepped in, making it clear they needed to let her go. The guy shot him dirty looks, but Li Yu watched him, hoping things would turn around. One of the thugs didn't hesitate. He went straight for Chen, swinging hard and looking ready to mess him up for getting involved where he wasn't wanted. Chen moved fast, dodging the hit like he'd done it 100 times before. No one saw that coming. Dude was just locked in, slipping past the attack without breaking a sweat. He snatched the guy's hand and cranked it hard, making the dude yell out from how much it hurt. He moved super quick and just dropped the guy with one solid hit. Right then, a weird screen suddenly popped up in front of Chen, letting him know it had picked up on some heavy negative vibes, stuff like fear, pain, and anger. Chen found himself surrounded by a weird energy, caught off guard when the negative emotion harvest system kicked in, something totally new for him since he never had it before. Things got heated fast. The gang leader snatched Li Yu and made it clear if Chen even flinched, it'd be over for her. Chen barely had a second to process what was happening. Out of nowhere, someone else jumped in and launched a brick straight from the ground. It flew so fast and nailed the leader right in the face, dropping him instantly. The guy showed up out of nowhere, roasting them hard for ganging up on just one girl. Like, seriously? Grown dudes picking on her? The guys totally lost it and charged at them, swinging clubs and sticks, ready to do some serious damage. Chen didn't back down at all. He kept his cool and handled their attacks like it was nothing, moving so fast they couldn't even keep up. The other guy stepped up and dropped one of the gang members. He locked eyes with his opponent, then landed a solid punch that dropped the guy to the ground. The other guy went all in, jumping up and landing a solid kick on one dude while the rest just dropped. He had the fight totally under control. Chen Xiao stood over the guys he just took down, making sure one of them stayed down with a hard stomp. He stared them down, eyes cold, not messing around. He told them to get out of his face right then and there. Right then, blue system screens popped up in front of him, letting him know the negative emotion harvest was live. He started racking up points from his enemies' fear, panic, pain, despair, and humiliation. For the first time, this unlocked a new upgrade for his void storage. The thugs totally lost it and ran off, screaming like they just saw a ghost. Chen couldn't help but grin when he started thinking about how wild it was to collect negative vibes from people. The whole idea low-key got him hooked. Li Yu spun around to look at him, still trying to process what just happened. She honestly couldn't believe he'd just saved her, and running into him here of all places totally caught her off guard. She gave him a thankful look, not sure what to say. Chen checked if she was okay, worried she might be hurt. He grabbed her shirt and draped it over her shoulders to help her warm up. Before heading out to handle some stuff, he reminded her to watch out for herself. Out of nowhere, this dude named Mo Sang jumped in and started hyping up Chen for stepping in to help the girl. Chen let everyone know who he was and said he set up the meeting. Mo Sang didn't expect Chen to be the buyer, and honestly, the whole thing just felt like some crazy coincidence, almost like it was meant to happen. The seller tried to kick things off with some weird secret code, but Chen just stared him down, totally unimpressed, and thought the guy was clueless. Right away, the system picked up that the seller was thrown off and kinda lost. Chen just laughed it off, making it clear he was messing around to keep things chill. He dropped the password they'd set up before, and Mo Sang didn't even hesitate. He was all in, waving him over to come along, looking way more pumped than usual. They pulled up to this house way out in the middle of nowhere. The seller brought out a box and opened it up. Inside was a Russian pistol. He hyped up how tough and powerful it was, but made sure to mention ammo was hard to find, so whoever used it had to be smart about every shot. Chen checked out the weapon like he really knew his stuff, and the seller could tell he was legit. The guy was so impressed he decided to hook Chen up with a special price just for him. Mo Tsang could tell right away that Chen knew what he was doing. Every move Chen made showed he wasn't new to this. He handled things like someone who'd been through it all before. Chen saw his shot and went for it, eyes sharp. He started asking for a silencer, a warranty card, and even tried to score an extra box of ammo for free. Mo Tsang couldn't believe what he was hearing. He thought he was already hooking the guy up with a solid deal, so the new request just caught him off guard. The seller snapped and started yelling, making it clear this was the black market stuff here costs double, and nobody comes in asking for warranties or freebies like it's some regular appliance shop. As the seller got more and more pissed off, Chen's system started stacking up negative emotion points from all that energy. Chen didn't waste any more time. He dropped the cash right away and knew he was set. He had all the gear and weapons he wanted. Now, there was just one thing left on his mind. Under the moonlight, the view jumped to this fancy hotel, and Lu Wan King was there, clearly not loving the wait. She gave Chen a hard time for showing up late, trying to act all cute, but you could tell she was kinda sus about whether his plane was actually safe. Chen played it smooth, telling her what she wanted to hear, but deep down he was just clowning her in his head for always chasing after more. Lu checked him out when he wasn't looking, kinda rolling her eyes inside. She figured he was just some clueless dude who'd actually sold his own blood just to buy her a bag, and she was sure he didn't have the guts to ever lie to her face. Inside the loan office, the boss was all about her smooth signature, but she couldn't care less. Her mind was locked in on getting that cash. She put her name down as a guarantor, thinking it was just some paperwork and that Chen would be the one dealing with the debt once everything was official. You could tell by the way the leader and his crew were eyeing her. They weren't planning anything good if she couldn't come through. They were already thinking about how she'd pay for it later. She knew she looked good and thought she could play everyone, totally clueless about the mess coming her way. Right after she put her name down, Chen couldn't help but feel grateful. Her wanting more cash was exactly what let him cover the last payment on his safe spot. Chen headed back to his place, and the engineer basically told him it was built like a tank now, fully locked down, insulated, blast-proof, and even tough enough to handle a nuke. Chen handed the engineer a good chunk of cash and let him know the work was legit. He was chilling on the couch in his safe house when the news started going off about some wild solar stuff and insane heat waves coming for the whole planet. The news kept talking about how the heat was about to break all-time records. Chen just sat there, wiping down his pistol with a white cloth, completely focused. He looked out the window, eyes locked in and totally focused, knowing this was it, the moment he'd been waiting for. The sky lit up bright red, covered in flames, making it obvious that everything was finally over.
Lately, I've had a strong addiction to watching manhwa and manga recap videos. Every single day, I find myself binging one after another, losing hours and days doing absolutely nothing productive. And honestly, it's getting out of hand. So, maybe we can make these viral videos too. I mean, look at the views, the growth, the community these creators are building. It looks simple, right? But that's a trap. You go down this endless rabbit hole, spending money, losing sleep, hiring editors and writers from Fiverr and Upwork, and still feel like you've been robbed. Because don't forget how emotional the YouTube algorithm can be with making videos go viral. It's unpredictable, especially when the market's saturated, competition's relentless, and somehow other creators are dropping 10-hour videos daily while you're stuck trying to finish one. That's when I realized something had to change. So, I built the solution, the Web2 Narrative Suite, a complete one-click system that handles everything from cropping, script narration, text-to-speech, image processing, and full video generation in one smooth process. Save money, reduce hours of work, and have a tool that only gives you straight results. Click on the link down below and experience it for yourself. And if you want even more tools to supercharge your YouTube recap journey, visit my Ko-Fi and Patreon pages where I drop weekly new tools designed to keep you ahead as AI continues to steal our jobs. So tap in now before you get left behind.